Barry Tompkins and Tim McCarver review the week's runs, hits, and errors on the baseball diamond when HBO Sports presents Race for the Pennant, next.
Non-stop weekends begin in September on HBO.
HBO Sports presents Race for the Pennant. Hello, everybody. I'm Barry Tompkins, along with Tim McCarver. The show, of course, is Race for the Pennant. And, Timmy, another one of those unusual kinds of weeks in baseball that are becoming more usual. News made off the field more than on, and made this week more by the managers than it was by the players.
Yeah, you're referring, Barry, of course, to Dick Howser becoming manager of the Kansas City Royals after Jimmy Fry got the axe. Unusually, Jimmy Fry last year beat Dick Howser's New York Yankees in the American League Championship Series 3 games in a row. It's reminiscent of the '64 Cardinals and Yankees when Johnny Keane, as manager of the Cardinals, became manager of the Yankees when Yogi Berra got the axe. It's a strange, strange business.
Here in New York, Gene Michael took his case to the public. He went to the press and said, "I think my job's in jeopardy," and that's very uncharacteristic for him.
It's uncharacteristic for any Yankee manager who hopes to keep his job. Billy Martin, of course, 2 or 3 years ago found that out. You don't rip the boss. Gene Michael did that. So far, the Yankees have been playing good ball since then. It may have been a thing that relaxed him and his ball players.
In Philadelphia, Dallas Green continues to be Dallas Green.
Speaking of honesty, Dallas Green was very honest when he knocked the cap off of second base umpire Steve Fields' head. He was suspended 5 days, and of course the Phillies lost 5 games in a row while he was out.
And an unfortunate situation in St. Louis, Gary Templeton, all kinds of problems there, and nonetheless it didn't seem to hinder the way the Cardinals have been playing baseball. Whitey Herzog has his team right where they left off in the first half. Last Wednesday in St. Louis, a long-standing problem came to a head when Gary Templeton failed to run out a dropped 3rd strike. The Cardinal fans jeered, and Templeton responded with some ungentlemanly behavior. Field boss and general manager Whitey Herzog fined Templeton and suspended him indefinitely. Despite the turmoil around them, the Cardinals kept right on winning, maintaining their hold on first place in the National League East. Playing aggressively in every phase of the game, the Cardinals were fitting Herzog's blueprint to a T. And on Thursday, the high-riding Cardinals started a series against the Padres, a team in the midst of a 4-game losing streak. The Cardinals won the opener, and on Saturday, Ken Oberkfell went 3 for 4 and hit his first homer of the year as the Cardinals jumped to an early lead in the first game of a doubleheader. On the mound, Padre alumnus Bob Shirley worked in relief of another Herzog acquisition, Larry Sorensen. Shirley picked up his first save, and the Cardinals went on to sweep the doubleheader. North of the border in Montreal, Les Expos were on a roll of their own as they swept the 3-game series from Cincinnati by a combined score of 27-1. The last 2 games against the Reds were shutouts, and when the Atlanta Braves came to town, they were shut out too, as Montreal pitching set a club record of 32 scoreless innings. Leading the way on offense was Gary Carter, who dominated the opposition, batting .444 with 3 homers and 13 RBIs in just 6 games. On the base paths, Tim Raines broke Gene Richards' rookie stolen base record of 56, an accomplishment all the more incredible in this shortened season. And on the hill, Jeff Reardon has emerged as Montreal's ace right-handed reliever, capping off a 5-game Expo winning streak with 3 1/3 shutout innings on Saturday, as the Expos hung tough in what is shaping up as a very tough Eastern Division race. So the Cardinals, a game and a half to the good of the Montreal Expos. Then you got the Mets and the Cubs, and they're maybe yes and maybe no in this short season. And Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, to me at least, just seem to be kind of going through the motions right now. But I really like the Expos. They have a lot of arms, and they have a lot of bats.
And you have to remember, Barry, that was a great ball club that finished only 1 game behind the World Series champions the last 2 years, Pittsburgh and the Phillies. Best 1-2 punch in baseball in Andre Dawson and Gary Carter. Gary was the player of the week last week, hitting .444. Andre Dawson hitting .330 in the second half with 6 homers, and both have great defensive skills. And those skills come into play because they've got a great pitching staff that has the fewest walks in baseball. And Jeff Reardon, acquired from the New York Mets, is doing a great job and is really their stopper in the bullpen now.
They also play really, really well at home.
Oh, I should say, backed by that crowd. Their crowds are up 20%. Can you imagine that in Montreal, up 20% with the weather they have up there? It's an incredible, enthusiastic crowd that anxiously wants a winner.
They've won 27-37 at home. But the Cardinals, you look at them statistically, and there really is nobody home. They have historically had 4 or 5 hitters in the top 10. This year, their best hitter's hitting right around .285, and yet they win.
Well, there are more ways to score runs than batting averages. What they're doing this year, it seems, are bunching their hits. And they're bunching their hits to score more runs so Bruce Sutter can save it. And that's the name of their game this year. Bruce Sutter.
Well, that's the way the National League East steps up. Let's take a look at the National League West, and an outstanding race going on there. 4 teams, throw them up in the air. What comes down? Well, that's what's in first place in the National League West. With the best record in baseball, the Dodgers are rarely caught short. One reason why is Ron Cey, who leads the club at game-winning RBIs. On Friday, Cey went 4 for 4 as he hit his 10th homer of the year and helped the Dodgers to a 6-1 victory over the Cubs. The win moved the Dodgers back into first place, at least temporarily, in the National League West. Meanwhile, in Philadelphia, Dallas Green had a slight difference of opinion with an umpire and found himself sitting out a 5-game suspension as a weekend series began down in Houston. Unflappable Bill Verdon looked on from the dugout as Craig Reynolds batted in the 10th inning of the first game and delivered the game-winning base hit. For the Astros, it was their first win over the Phillies in 7 tries this year. On Saturday, in the first game of a doubleheader, leadoff man Tony Scott, batting near .300 since joining the Astros, added to his average as he drove in a run with a double in a 6-1 Houston win. In the nightcap, the Houston fans were treated to a rarity by Al Ashby. The Astros catcher registered Houston's 12th homer of the year at home, and the event was even more rare for Ashby himself. This solo shot was his first of the year, but it made the difference. Houston won it 2-1. In the finale on Sunday, Jose Cruz was the right man at the right time as he broke up another extra inning stalemate with this game winner. The Astros edged the Phillies 5-4. And with it, they managed to tag Sparky Lyle with his second loss in 3 days. Houston celebrated a 4-game sweep. At Candlestick Park, the omnipresent breeze was in the air as the Giants came up with the essentials to take 4 straight from the Pirates. Manager Frank Robinson keeping an ever-watchful eye, slugger Jack Clark came up in the 13th inning of Thursday's series opener. Clark's 11th homer meant a 5-4 win for the jubilant Giants. Ed Whitson 4-hit the Pirates on Friday, and the next day, Luis Tiant continued to pitch in hard luck as the Giants loaded the bases and took advantage of a good example of just why the Pirates have been having their problems lately. San Francisco went on to an 8-3 win, and on Sunday, Tom Griffin's shutout capped off a Giant weekend, their first series sweep of the year. So the Houstons are in first place in the National League West. You know, a lot is said about the psychological part of the game of baseball, and I would have to think a sweep of the Phillies by Houston has got to give them just a great emotional lift.
Shows you also how well they play in the Dome. Incredible. After the Phillies had swept them at home, 6-0 at the Vet in Philadelphia, the Phillies go to the Astrodome and get swept by Houston. Excellent pitching on that ball club. It's going to be aided, I think, by the return of J.R. Richard from a psychological standpoint, if for nothing else.
It's a team that really seems to have benefited by the second season, and so too is the San Francisco Giants. They have won 9 out of 13 games. Frank Robinson has got that ball club playing some pretty good baseball, maybe even over their heads.
Well, it's a strange ball club. They're anything but jolly green Giants. As a matter of fact, they've had some experience on that ball club. The youngest regulars, 25 years old. And you hit it right on the head. Frank Robinson showed that he was a winner with the Cincinnati Reds and with the Baltimore Orioles. The guy's had incredible stats. He's one of the few guys that was a superstar and can put that into effect when he's trying to teach the game.
And that is an adjustment that really is easier said than done. Frank Robinson has made that move from superstar on the field, maybe to super manager. He's got the Giants playing just great baseball here in this second half. His career began with Cincinnati in 1956, and Frank Robinson immediately made his presence felt, belting 38 homers that year. Hitting for both average and power, Robinson thrived in Cincinnati, and in 1961 was named the National League's most valuable player. But after a contract dispute in 1965, Robinson was dealt to Baltimore in one of baseball's most ill-advised trades. With the Orioles in 1966, Robbie played like a man with something to prove, winning the batting, home run, and RBI titles, and becoming the first player to be named MVP in both leagues. Robinson led the Orioles to the World Series that year, and 3 more times as well. Like another ball player named Robinson, Frank was a pioneer. In 1975, he became player manager with the Cleveland Indians, and on opening day, electrified the crowd by hitting a home run in his first at-bat. But the Indians hovered around 500, and 2 years later, Robinson was fired. But that wasn't the end. This year, Robbie took on the task of making winners out of the San Francisco Giants. As baseball's 4th greatest home run hitter and a certain Hall of Famer, Robinson has always been demanding. The early results with the Giants have been good, and we recently spoke with Frank about what lies ahead.
Playing is a job, managing is a job, and I think anytime you have an experience for the first time, you feel like things will work. Certain things will. Certain things won't, and you get in and you try them, you say, no, that doesn't work, let's throw that out, go back to the drawing board. But I think each time, each year that you're in a job, even though it's managing, you're learning. And I think the things that you learn, the pitfalls and things, you put it to use the next time around, you should be a better person for it.
Finally, it is no longer Frank Robinson, comma, baseball's first black manager. Now it seems to be Frank Robinson, comma, manager.
Well, that's the way it should be. It had to be reported first time around because that was history. Something was being done that had never been done before. I could understand that. The second year it died down somewhat, and hopefully because of the way we were playing, I guess. And the third year was almost non-existent. And this time around it had to be reported somewhat. The first black manager that was hired and fired, is coming back for a second chance. But what I appreciate is it hasn't been over-reported. And now they refer to me as, I think they should, the manager of the San Francisco Giants.
To give you an old racetrack adage, a mule is not going to win the Kentucky Derby, and that might be said here in baseball, too. If you haven't got the horses, you're not going to win the pennant.
Well, that's no doubt about it. You're only as good as the personnel that you have on the field. And I think if you have, I think one thing a manager can't do is if he has the personnel to win, then you should win with it. If you don't win, then I think that's when you're doing what I call a bad managing job. If you don't have the personnel, you can get them to play better. And that's what you do, to strive to improve and get that ball club to play up to its potential. And, you know, if they do that, fine. If they don't, there's nothing you can really do about it. You can work them, you can practice with them, you can talk to them, whatever. But if they can't do it and don't do it on the field, there's not much you can do about it.
I can remember talking to you when you were the manager in Cleveland, and you're saying that you had control on the field of play, but once you got off, you really didn't have control. It seems to be a little bit different here.
Well, I think it's necessary to, and it is a different story. I think you have to have some say upstairs of what happens, because that reflects on what happens down here on the field. And if you don't have a say in the personnel that you have on the field, you don't have a say in the trades or the free agent market, the people that stay here that's not traded, then there's not much you can do. Your hands almost tied, because what people are saying upstairs is, here is the personnel, you work with it. And it may not be the type of personalities you want to work with. It may not be your type of players. They may not be able to fit into what you want to do. And you should be able to say, hey, look, to the general manager, this guy doesn't fit. Get him out of here, bring me someone else in here, and he should, if at all possible, do that for you.
Are the players today as hungry as you were?
No, they don't have to be, and I mean that. You know, each year that you went out and played, each at-bat, each RBI you got, each success your team had, you know, it depended on your salary for next year, the following year. Now the players' salaries are set for 3, 4, 5 years, and they know that whatever type of year that they have, the salary is there. They're not going to make any more or any less, you know, at that time, for a period of time anyway. And they say, hey, you know, I don't have to push myself. I'm going to be here. They can't do anything to me. They can't send me back to the minor leagues. If they trade me or release me, somebody else will pick me up. No, they're not as hungry because they don't have to be.
When all of this baseball stuff is said and done, how would Frank Robinson like to be remembered?
Well, I think as a fair and honest person, as a winner, as a ball player, and hopefully as a manager. And he contributed to baseball. He gave something to baseball. Baseball gave something to him, but I think I would want to be remembered as a winner.
Frank Robinson, baseball's first black commissioner.
No, I'm tired of those first black things. Maybe Frank Robinson, the first commissioner. I don't know. No.
You know, Tim, I really enjoyed talking with Frank Robinson. I found him to really be a thinker and a guy who really seems to have a lot going for him, both on and off the field. He has made a transition that not a lot of superstar players can make.
Well, most of the superstars are too worried about playing instead of thinking about what they're doing, and that's why a lot of them can't relay to other ball players how to do it. Frank Robinson is one of those guys that can. You take Willie Mays or Ted Williams during his short tenure as a manager, he couldn't get it across what he was trying to say.
I'll tell you, it has always been a great intangible to me, what makes a good major league manager. I always thought, if you can spit and you can scratch, you can manage a Major League Baseball team.
Whenever any manager takes over a big league ball club, they have the same feel, that I'm up here not to win a popularity contest, I want your respect. I think that's a lot of bunk. I think that you can fit that in all those baseball cliches that I absolutely detest. Doesn't it make sense that if you're popular with a group of men, that you could get your point across a little bit better?
It definitely does. Well, I'll tell you, it's always open season on managers here in New York, and Gene Michael is a guy now working for George Steinbrenner. That's like being a guest on Let's Make a Deal. Gene Michael, come on down!
In Chicago, the White Sox opened a 4-game series by beating the Yankees 3-1. That loss caused Yankee manager Gene Michael to feel the wrath of George Steinbrenner. But in the next 3 games, Dave Winfield and company came to the professional rescue of their beleaguered manager as the Bronx Bombers lived up to their name. Highlighted by Winfield's Inside the Park spectacular, some anemic Yankee bats came to life as New York pounded out 3 straight wins. Night, manager Michael was cheered by another stellar performance from Ron Guidry, who picked up his 4th win of the 2nd season. The Louisiana Lightning crackled through 6 innings, allowing only 1 run, his first in 23 frames. With their spirits dampened, Chicago fans showered coins and bills upon a slumping Reggie Jackson. Now, Reggie's always been a money player, and on Friday night he responded with 2 hits and 4 at-bats, and some fine play in the field, as New York grabbed a 6-1 win. On Saturday, Reggie gave further evidence that he's coming around by hitting his first home run in 34 games, and he helped the Yankees coast to a 12-2 White Sox drubbing. Enjoying some regained success of his own was a trimmed-down Rudy May, who gave up just 5 hits on Sunday as he snapped a personal 7-game losing streak by going the distance in a 5-1 Yankee win. In Boston, the Red Sox were playing host to the Western Division's first-half winners from Oakland. And as the series began on Thursday night, Boston's top run producer, Dwight Evans, came to bat in the bottom of the 8th and jumped on a 3-0 pitch. Dewey's 15th homer of the year was a 2-run shot, and that gave the Red Sox a 6-5 win. Things didn't go much better for Billy Martin's troops the next night, as Brian Kingman came on in relief of Mike Norris and walked in 3 runs as Boston scored 5 times in the 3rd on only 2 base hits. Rookie Bob Ojeda benefited from Oakland's generosity, winning his 3rd game in 4 decisions as the Red Sox crossed out the A's 12-5. On Saturday, the Fenway faithful were pleased again as Carney Lansford, the league's 5th leading hitter, managed a 3-run shot that cleared the Red Sox to a 7-6 win and Oakland's 10th straight loss in Boston.
So, Tim, even though they've been floundering, Detroit still has a half-game lead on Milwaukee. Boston is in 3rd place, a game and a half back, tied with Baltimore. But, you know, Boston has 5 300 hitters, and that's just amazing to me. Milwaukee, always known for having the hitters, also has little pitching this year.
They've always had hitters, as you said, with Ted Simmons added to that roster. Incredible lineup, but now they have Raleigh Fingers in that awfully, very, very important bullpen spot as short reliever. He's got 20 saves, and Pete Vukovich is 10-3. Both of those guys came over from the St. Louis Cardinals.
Well, the Yankees are playing pretty good baseball right now. They seem to play about as hard as they have to play. They're just 2 games back now. And Baltimore, even though they're only a game and a half back, and I think this is credit to just how deep they are, they've got some pitching problems, and they're still in the hunt.
And they keep running that shuttle from Rochester, their AAA team, right up to the major leagues, and those guys are prepared to play. Jim Palmer's out for the season, it appears. Steve Stone, after suffering a lot of arm miseries earlier in the season, is coming back. He's not pitching as well as he can, but they still have Martinez, Flanagan, and McGregor, and pitching's the name of their game.
Well, Baltimore entertained a little bit of the West. The California Angels came east to the city of Baltimore, and we've now talked about the American League East. Let's talk about the American League West. Baltimore and California in a big series.
The California Angels traveled to Baltimore to take on the Orioles in a hard-fought matchup of 2 teams looking to take advantage of the ups and downs of the second season. In the series opener, Orioles mastermind Earl Weaver called on Dr. Longball in the 8th as Doug DeCinces came up with the bases loaded. DeCinces unloaded everything with his 2nd grand slam in 2 weeks, giving Baltimore a 5-run lead. On the mound, Scott McGregor allowed only 2 runs in the form of 2 solo homers by the streaking Bobby Grich. The Orioles grabbed a 6-2 win for McGregor, his 9th victory of the season and his 8th straight over the Angels in the last 3 years. The next night, Cy Young Award winner Steve Stone returned to the mound, but Rick Burleson spoiled that party, leading a relentless Angel attack that rang up 9 runs in 6 innings. Near 280 in the second half, the Angels raised their record to 17-12 since Gene Mauch took over as they trashed the Birds 9-2. On Saturday, the Orioles let off a little steam as catcher Rick Dempsey went to bat after Bert Campaneris made an error at 3rd. Dempsey jumped on another mistake with Baltimore's 12th homer in 6 games. That gave the Birds a 4-3 lead. The surprising ace of the Orioles staff, Dennis Martinez, shut the door the rest of the way, getting his 10th win against only 4 losses. And on Sunday, the Angels evened up the series as both teams stayed neck and neck in their division races. In Toronto, being under 500 isn't the worst thing in the world, but for Jim Fry and his defending American League champions, life under 500 just wasn't acceptable. The Royals won the opener of the series with Toronto behind an 11-run barrage that handed the Blue Jays their 5th straight loss. Toronto won the next game, but on Saturday, down under Dan Quisenberry picked up his 12th save, protecting 7 shutout innings turned in by rookie Mike Jones. The Royals win evened their record at 10-10. Sunday's game was rained out, and on Monday, in a startling move, Dick Howser, who lost his job as Yankee manager after losing the pennant to the Royals, was named to replace Jim Fry.
Gentlemen, I take great pride in, although in some sorrow in letting Jim go, I am proud to have Dick Howser as the manager of the Kansas City Royals for the remainder of this season and for 3 years after that. So Dick will be signed through the '84 season. Dick, welcome to Kansas City.
Thank you, Joe. It's nice to be here. Thank you very much. I like the ball club. That's one reason I'm here. This is a good ball club, a good nucleus. You asked me about the pitching staff. You know, every club has some problems, minor problems. But I think all you have to do is look to what they did last year. And most of those players are still here. And you can see that's a good ball club.
I don't know, Tim. He doesn't really have to be too much of a miracle worker to make winners out of the Kansas City Royals. Dick Howser gets a team that's just one game out.
A little shaky first half, but you got to remember these guys are American League champs. And I've got to wonder why that move was made. I mean, after all, Jimmy Fry won the American League pennant last year. What did he do differently this year? The players never complained last year that he couldn't handle men. Now, all of a sudden, they're complaining. Strange, strange move.
Business really is a case of what have you done for me lately, just like the television business. Let me ask you about the trade that the Minnesota Twins and the Chicago White Sox made for an age-old pitcher, Jerry Koosman. He goes to Chicago.
Former New York Mets star, of course, in the glory years of '69 and '73, was traded to Minnesota because he wanted to be home. I don't suppose he wants to stay home anymore. He's going to the White Sox primarily because they extended his contract a year. A lot of Minnesota players are very angry about that. They're only 2 games out of first place after all, and they feel like their pitching staff's been depleted and they are in sore need of pitching.
Calvin Griffith, the last of a breed,
Yes,
I would have to think. That just about brings this episode of Race for the Pennant to a close. So for Tim McCarver, I'm Barry Tompkins. We will see you 1 week from now right here. Join us then, won't you?
It's action south of the border when a bandit and a bomber get involved in a revolution. Rod Steiger and James Coburn in the explosive Fistful of Dynamite, next on HBO.
Non-stop weekends begin in September on HBO. The following motion picture has been rated PG by the Motion Picture Association of America. Parental guidance is suggested.